Hi, everybody, and welcome to Friday Night Flock Talk. I'm Robin Sullivan of the Leather Elves, and I want to welcome you all. I'm so excited for tonight's episode or session. I need to do the usual reminders. We would love it if you would like the Leather Elves on Facebook. That way, you get notification when we go live. You can follow us on Instagram. If on the Facebook page, you'll also get notification of sales and events and things like that. And we also have a YouTube channel. And so I went on the YouTube channel today. I usually let Nick handle that, but but I went on there today, and I have very few subscribers. So if you guys can subscribe to the YouTube channel, it would make me really happy. Hey, Adrian. So Adrian, it's interesting that you bring up the hot and humid. So for like 2 years now, you guys have been making fun of me and how it's cold where I am. Our high is going to be 50 on Saturday or Sunday. And so I bet you all aren't making fun of me now, are you? Just saying. Anyway, there are a couple things I wanted to talk about tonight real quickly before we get started. The Lacey Act is the first thing. So for those of you that have not heard of this, the Cavalry Group is a great resource for information. We want to stop the Lacey Act Amendment. If you look into things, what it will affect all of us. People like, oh no, I just have a couple parrots. Oh no, I just this. Oh no, I just that. And it's really, there isn't anybody that it's not going to, anybody that it's not, that it isn't going to affect. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's really, really important that you make your opinion known. It's things like a bird can be deemed injurious, a species can be deemed injurious, and it will be banned. Any interstate travel will be banned. It affects all pets except dogs and cats. Could be a white list, and unless an animal is listed on that white list, it has to go through a process to be listed. And the only ones on the white list are non-injurious or not an invasive species risk. If it goes through, it will be unlawful to cross state lines with any animal not on the white list. So what this means is if you've got a bird that doesn't make it onto the white list, and you have your vet is just across the state line, I know that happens for a lot of people, it's not going to work for you anymore. You're going to have to find somebody in your own state. You can't cross those state lines. So there's a lot that's impacted by this. So I'm just asking you all, that QR code takes you to some resources, but make your opinion known. You have a voice, and the society we live in is wide open to us expressing our voices. So use those voices for this purpose. I also want to talk to you about our BOGO sale. So it's till the end of June. The Leather Elves is having a BOGO sale. I will tell you, for those of you that have ordered and not got your orders yet, we are absolutely swamped, but we're still going to do it through the end of June. There are some restrictions, but you can check it out on the site. This lamp is one of those restrictions, but we do still have some of those available. We have a cockatoo lamp, a lovebird lamp, and we still have some cockatoo pillows. So those things are not on the BOGO, but we do have a few of them left. So, go shop after we're done, because this is going to be a really cool episode. So, all right, the business part of things is out of the way. Frank got his already, so you want to be cool like Frank. Frank got his cockatoo lamp already. So, all right. So tonight, I'm really excited to have with me Meg Meyer. I met Meg, and when I met Meg, I was immediately impressed with her enthusiasm. You can see that. You can just see the smile, and then once she opens her mouth, that enthusiasm becomes immediately apparent. And then we find out that she's an amazing trainer. So hi, Meg, how are you?
I am flattered to hear you say all those kind words. Thank you so much. And wow, yeah, I think we met at IAATE, which was life-changing for me, still is one of the best organizations around. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here.
Well, thank you. So I'm going to read your bio and then we're going to get started with the fun stuff. So
Okay.
Meg is proud to be a Minnesotan. How was that? Was it good?
Yeah, that was
Right?
good
Okay.
accent.
Good. She graduated with a BA in biology from the University of Minnesota Morris in 2008. Following a few years of personal adventuring and professional leadership in environmental education, she attended Pikes Peak Community College in Colorado Springs for zookeeping technology. In 2014, she interned at Cheyenne Mountain Zoo in the African Rift Valley and Minnesota Zoo at the Bird Show. That same year, she attended her first of many IAATE conferences where she initially connected with Natural Encounters and its charismatic employees. Meg worked at Lincoln Children's Zoo in Lincoln, Nebraska as a bird keeper for 2 years before eventually saying goodbye to the Midwest and started her journey with NEI December of 2016. She currently works on the Winged Encounters team at a major theme park in Florida. Meg helps to lead a team that trains 100 macaws to free fly, say that 5 times fast, across the park for a short dynamic show. Meg fills every role on the team and mentors other trainers. She loves being on mic and regularly presents at the Winged Encounter show and even at the SOAR show at the State Fair of Texas with NEI. That's pretty impressive.
Wow. Thank you. I was listening to some of those dates and I was like, do they know how old I am? I'm not sure, but
Yeah, I no longer include dates in my bio because I'm ancient, but it's all
that's
good.
smart.
Um,
That's a good tip.
it's just like for a period she was at, and for a while
Yeah.
she did this, and many years ago she did that. So that's the way to go. But you're not old enough for that yet, so we're okay. Um, so I want to start out, Meg, by asking you, what's your favorite bird to train? It doesn't have to be a parrot, even though you're kind of, the bias here is clear. But what's your favorite bird to train?
Honestly, it is the macaws, and I never thought I would say that in a million years. I worked with so many birds before macaws, but the team that I'm on now with the birds that we have now, it's just, I don't know, there's something special about them. And every day is an adventure, every bird is an individual, and it's just so fun to train so many at one time and see how they interact with us and with each other. And every day is an adventure.
All right. And there's that smile I was talking about. There it is. So, so I've got to ask too, what's your funniest training memory?
I was trying to think of so many memories earlier, and there's so many to choose from, but the one that I cannot stop thinking of is a memory from the State Fair of Texas in Dallas. Super fun show to be a part of. NEI's been doing it for so many years, and I'm really blessed to be part of that team again this summer. But we practice before the fair opens, obviously, routines and training with birds. And last year we had a cute little round Amazon parrot named Happy Jack, who I still work with today. He lives at the building with us and all the macaws. Um, but we brought him out on one of the very first days. We had the huge big screen behind us. So he got out on stage and saw like a 12-foot version of him and took off. And it's a bird that I had no idea could fly before. I mean, he's been outside countless times on the hands doing programs. And he took one look at himself on the big screen and flew as fast as I've ever seen a little bird fly right into a tree. And none of us were prepared for that. And it was just so funny. And we got him down from the tree. I think he was resting for quite a while, but just that moment in general, a distraction for sure, since that's what we're talking
There you-
about. It was so funny. He was
Yeah.
so cute.
And I think you bring up a really good point because saying, you worked with him for a long time and had no idea that he could fly. Because everybody's like, oh no, my bird doesn't fly. No, he'll stay right with me. And you never know. You
Yeah, you
really
never
don't.
know. Maybe some people knew, but I did not. And I was so impressed. And it's so funny still to this day. There's a picture. I'll have to send it to you so you can show everyone. He's so cute.
All right. So tell me a little bit. I mean, you have your bio is incredible. But tell me about your background. Like, how did this all come to be? How did little
Uh,
Meg decide she wanted to be a bird trainer?
That is such a great question. And it starts with little Meg, aka 23-year-old Meg, not knowing what to do with her life and knew that there was some purpose out there somewhere. Um, but my first instinct, I just Googled on my desktop computer after undergrad, um, Hawaii internship and dolphins. And that was my first adventure that I took. And I moved to Honolulu and I worked for Dolphin Quest as an intern, knowing not much about animal care, knew some about biology for sure, but that was my first adventure and I missed the Midwest. So I came back and then worked in wildlife rehab and environmental education, ecology conservation, and then eventually was like, I'm going to go back to school because I can do that. And I think that's what I want to do with my life. And moved again and went on so many adventures, trying things out, working for free, being an intern, having a seasonal position. And I didn't get my first full time job till I was 29, which I think is important for people in their 20s to hear because you don't have to have it all figured out, set in stone. Like so many people think they have to have it figured out. But it took me a while to get where I'm at, and it has been a great ride, and I feel very blessed.
All right. No, and I think that you're right. It is important. It's people do the, well, I want to be, I think I want to do, I don't know. And you get into something and then it's just not what you thought it was going to be, or it's not who you have become. And,
Hmm.
this wasn't my first rodeo. It wasn't, it wasn't, I was going to do this for when I was little. I didn't say, oh, I really want to work with animals and I want to do enrichment. That wasn't it. It was many years later. See, look at that. Many years later.
Many
Don't give
years.
away the many years later. And I couldn't be happier doing what I'm doing. So I think that is an important message. Um, so you've now landed at NEI, Natural Encounters, and I, my first, my first introduction to Natural Encounters, I was at a theme park in Florida, and
Fun.
I went to the show, and it was Winged Encounters, and I went to the I and I no, it was called something different at the time, and I
Okay.
went and I said, I'll give this a shot, and I walked up to the usher and I said, "Hi, I make parrot toys, and I'd like to speak to someone about the parrots." And um, he said, Okay. And he went out back and he brought this guy out and he said, Hi, I'm Steve Martin and I can talk to you about this. And I went, Oh, and like honestly didn't have a clue who he was or what he did. And
Hmm.
over the years since then, having been on board of directors with him and worked with him, I now know what he does. But he is the founding father, owner of Natural Encounters. So tell us what Natural Encounters is all about, Meg.
Natural Encounters is a dream come true. And I remember saying to my mom when I met Steve at IAAT, I'm like, I'm going to work for him someday. I'm going to be there. And now I'm here for almost 6 years, which is very exciting. Um, Steve is very talented and knows a lot, but he's also a really fun friend to have, and he's a really cool person. So it's nice to know him on that level as well. And Natural Encounters has changed quite a bit since I've been with the company, but one thing remains the same is like the culture we have when it comes to staff interactions and our interactions with the animals we work with. We have a lot of like um, things written down in our code of conduct that are like NEI isms. One of the big ones is assume good intentions, which is like a code that we all try to follow as best we can. Um, and I just think it's a place where you can offer feedback and accept feedback in a safe environment. And we're all about trust accounts and building those with your coworkers, plus your leaders, and then the animals you work with. So it's a great place to be. Steve always says that welfare is our guide, and I believe that that is true. Our birds have phenomenal welfare, and I think that's what makes our show so special. So, yeah, NEI is it has a legacy and it definitely has a future. So, there's a lot going on with NEI.
Absolutely. I know I noticed Chris Armstrong is listening. And Chris, I know has been to the ranch for at least one course that I know of. And so Chris can, I'm sure, attest to that fact, that the culture there is pretty amazing. So um, let's talk. So Frank, the ranch is in Florida, and the major theme park that Meg works at is in Florida. We're gonna leave it at that because Frank, you know how you end up in Facebook jail all the time? It's kind of like that. So, all right. So Meg, let's talk about the project you're working on now. What's your focus right now?
Yeah, so Winged Encounters is a team of, I don't know, at least 10 people, probably 10 or 11 people. And we work with 90 macaws that have been doing the show for a long time. The show started 8 years ago this month. I've been there 5.5, so that's crazy to think about. But we have three different flocks of about 30 birds that fly a half a mile into the central location of the park where guests get to see them, and then they fly home when they're ready, which is super cool. So
One bird like this. Wouldn't it be so cool to
Oh,
see a
let's listen to
sky filled
Meg.
with macaws?
that's
You
me.
could either go to South America and you could see that, or you could just look up. Instead of just seeing one bird like this, wouldn't it be so cool to see a sky filled with
And
macaws?
So
Meg and I were looking at this before we came on, and I said to her, "It never gets old. It,
no,
it
I
just
just got
doesn't."
tears in my eyes watching it. So yeah, it's a very, very cool show that catches people by surprise and also teaches them something, and then gives them that great up close experience when the birds leave. They fly right over their head. People get amazing videos of them heading off on their next adventure. So that's basically the show in a nutshell. I'm sure we'll talk more about it. Haha, nutshell. That was a parrot joke.
I see what you did there. That was good. That was good.
Um, but right
I
now,
think you've been working at that major theme park with dad jokes for too long.
yeah.
Here you go.
But right now,
So
besides the shows, we are working on training 15 new birds and incorporating those birds into the existing flocks, doing the behavior because it's such a big behavior. Um, and so, working on the steps to train those baby steps to get that half a mile flight and knowing where to go, when to go, and how to get home. So, that's what we're working on. It's super exciting.
do we have that picture of the lift, Nick? Because that's part of that your training process, isn't it, Meg?
Yeah, definitely. We use this at the ranch, and then we also use it at any location that we are training free flighted macaws to do a big flight like that. Our flight is a half a mile to the perch area and then a half a mile home. And our trainers are very skilled, and we go up in big construction lifts with our hard hats and our harnesses. And you can see on that picture that is a blue and gold macaw who is not one of the babies that's being trained currently, but remembers that the lift is a place where he's gotten lots of reinforcement in the past. And so, yeah, our trainers go up, the birds practice going to the lift, and then eventually it goes a longer distance. And it's just so fun to see the progression and the learning occur.
That is neat. I remember when you guys were first figuring out how to do this show, and it was just so cool to hear like Steve talking about we can try this, we can try that, let's do this, let's do that. And it was just really, it was so innovative and such a long distance as well. It wasn't just, hi, come here, do a little A to B and I'll reinforce you, and then do a little more and I'll reinforce you, which in itself with distractions is still amazing, but
Exactly.
this lengthy flight is great. So all right. um so we want to talk about distractions tonight, and that distractions do happen. And I think um they come in a lot of different forms, and you and I talked about this the other day when we spoke. And so what are the so let's talk about the distractions for the birds first of all. What do you find, what are the big challenges for you?
Yeah, our show comes with a lot of different distractions. I mean, NEI always talks about one of their NEI-isms is we don't train in a vacuum. So nothing is ever going to be this perfectly arranged antecedent with a perfect outcome and the behavior is flawless. And we have so many different birds that do the same behavior together. And when that, like, people always ask, how do you make them come here? And I'm like, well, first of all, we don't make them do anything. Could you imagine? And I'm like, they have minds of their own and they have agendas of their own and they have friends of their own, but we always try to make the behavior we're looking for the easiest and the most rewarding. But with that being said, the competing reinforcers are everywhere.
I remember there was a paper done at IAATE by you guys or your team about one particular season at that park. Do you remember that one?
Oh yes, I think you're referring to the acorn apocalypse,
That's it.
right?
That's the one. So tell us
Yeah,
a
I
little
mean,
bit about that.
honestly, I was not on the team when that happened, but it's a story that people have heard for many years. But I mean, just like our big aviary where the birds live, we put browse up all the time. We have so much enrichment. You'd be so proud. We have lots of things, toys and baths and ice cubes, and we need to make home the most reinforcing place for them, obviously, because that's the most important thing is coming home when they're done doing whatever they do. But when there's a huge oak tree, outside the aviary about a quarter mile away, and there's a lot of acorns, I mean, why would you come home? What's in it for us to
Dan
come
says,
home?
yeah,
Exactly.
Dan says acorns,
Oh,
dot, dot,
Dan's
dot. And
here.
I can see Dan doing the head shake as he's thinking of acorns,
Yeah,
It's
he was there. So,
but so, a lot of people when they're training at home, um there are definitely competing reinforcers in the home as well. What
mhm.
kind of So what would you suggest to people, if they've got this wonderfully, stimulating environment that they've got their birds living in, which is great for their welfare, but when you go to start a training session, it's not always the best. What would you suggest for people?
Yeah, I can see how that would be frustrating for some people who want to have some training time with their parrot when their parrot just wants to be at home. I think we can all relate to that. Like, we like going to work, but sometimes you just want to be on the couch watching Netflix with a bottle of wine. So I can see how that would be frustrating. Um, I would say let the parrot be your guide. Go in and offer what you have to offer and what's in it for them. They're going to decide if it's worth it or not. And you might have to play around with a few things. You might have to have some special reinforcers just to see what's worth it for them and to make that time that you spend with them training, but also something that's really rewarding too. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. And you just kind of have to play around with what's in it for them to come on out and hang out with you.
So we've got a question, and when you said, sometimes it's just nice to be on the couch. Debbie Goodrich says, how often are the birds changed out of the show, and do you keep the same ones on or rotate who goes and who stays?
That is a really good question, Debbie. Since we have so many birds, I think we try to have our flocks above 25 individuals. But that gives us some wiggle room because usually they're around 30 birds. Birds that go on a little hiatus, like break out of show, they get put on feed up, which is basically a bird vacation where they have as much as they want for as long as they want, 24/7. And that's a little break from show. So we do rotate birds out. Especially if we see behavior breakdown, and what that looks like is not necessarily landing, not really leaving, or coming back early. Those are probably like the little breakdown behaviors that we see, and we just rotate through birds who have some time off and then get put back in. And if social dynamics change, we have 3 flocks, so we can move birds from flock to flock, and maybe they find a new best friend or a new buddy, and that's pretty cool to see too.
So that's another distraction that we talked about. Social dynamics. How does that affect the distraction of the social aspect? How does that affect you?
That is a really good question. Because a lot of times when we work with animals, it's a one-on-one, one trainer, one animal. But at my job, it's a lot of trainers and so many birds. And since the show's been going on about 8 years, we have birds that are getting to the age where they'd rather couple up or triple up and be with the ones that they love and kick out the ones that they don't love. And so I would say social dynamics plays a huge factor. They're so cute. Um, in our show, because if we have a lot of leaders, we have a lot of followers, but if the leader decides to peace out and head off property, there's probably going to be a lot of birds that follow that bird, you know? So we have to really pay attention to the reinforcers that we give all of our birds, but especially those leaders, because we do see so many social dynamics, and most of it is adorable, but some of it is challenging to navigate.
Yeah, Eva says, what trumps a love interest in the cage next to the learner? Yeah, that's as good as it gets. And so you've got
Yeah.
to kind of be aware of that. And I think that's an important thing for people to think about too, is that you really need to be aware and you need to be observant. You're working with 90 birds, Meg, and you've got to know, okay, this guy's, this isn't important for this one. This is important for that one. Oh, I'm watching this. There's been that little breakdown in behavior. And all of that is so important. And I think the people listening who are training at home can use that in their training, that observation. I mean, how do you build those skills? Is it just experience? How does that happen?
I think it's a I think it's a combination of experience because I've definitely gotten better at it as I've been with NEI and moved up in my role. But mindfulness is a huge thing that I've been practicing. And there is no way, I mean, mindfulness is just a fancy word for paying attention. And like when you start to pay attention to little things, whether it's a tiny little, you know, cut on your bird's face or a little feather that's being weird or a certain social relationship that is growing stronger between two individuals, or oh, they really like to play with that, or wow, I offered all these things that I thought were high value that they don't care about. Just like really paying attention and practicing paying attention to every little detail. Because even if you just have one bird you're working with, there's so much that you can pick up on if you just start practicing seeing the details.
Yeah, I think that's the key, and it's really in being able to judge the dynamics and being able to see, okay, so this one maybe, and it may not even be the one bird that you're working with. It may be another bird in the group that's having some issues, or something's going on, something just isn't right, and the other birds absolutely pick up on it. I mean, you can kind of see it wave through the group, and I'm sure you've experienced that a time or two. um, so all right, so those are the distractions for the birds. Then there's us, personally a member of the short attention span theater group. And so we've got to think about those distractions for us. So you mentioned mindfulness. Um, how do you, is it again just practice? Do you think? So before you're going to go to work or go to train or go to do a show, how do you prepare for that? How do you get ready for that?
Again, a lot of things go into that, and I've gotten better over the years for the period of time that I've worked for NEI. See, I paid attention and I'm applying that, so mindfulness. Um,
Nice.
I I think practicing mindfulness is definitely a skill set. I don't think you're born with like everyone's born with the ability to be mindful, but you really have to practice it as a skill you're trying to enhance. Um, so paying attention for sure. Also paying attention to not only what you're doing at work or how you communicate with your coworkers and how you interact with your animals, but how you talk to yourself. I think internal dialogue and mindfulness has a lot to do with your successes and your little missteps at work. So just all of that stuff, I think.
Yeah, and when you live with your business partner, no, it really works. It does, but you've got to be extra mindful. So it does come with time. And I think, a lot of times as trainers, we nitpick ourselves too. We do that. Oh, that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. That wasn't how I wanted to do it. And I think it's good. I'm a big fan of videotaping training sessions. Do you guys do that at Natural Encounters? Yeah.
Hmm.
Because being able to see it and reflect, but not necessarily beat yourself up about it or dwell on it, just learn from it. And I think that's important. Yeah, observation skills are so important, Adrian. Um, so okay, so there've got to be days, Meg, when you go and things just don't work the way you envisioned when you got in your car and went to work in the morning. How do you handle something like that? How do you handle frustration? I mean, because for me, frustration is a big distraction. How do you handle that?
Absolutely. And if you want to find a reason to be frustrated, you will absolutely find several reasons to be frustrated. So you have to decide what your priority is. Do you want to find reasons to be frustrated or find reasons to see setbacks as setups for future opportunities? And I'm glad that you mentioned people being so hard on themselves, because one of Steve's famous quotes within the company is mistakes are just opportunities to start over again with more information. So we invite mistakes. Ari always says we celebrate mistakes, and we've all made mistakes, and we're all going to keep making mistakes. And it's just, you can let the frustration get to you and continue to let the mistakes, compound, or you can be like, wow, what did we learn from that? Let's have a discussion about it. Let's talk as a team about what went well, what could have gone better. Let's brainstorm ideas. Right tool for the job. Is this bird really the right tool for that job? Is this person the right tool for that job? That's another thing that NEI really talks about a lot. And so, yeah, frustration can get you. But if you're mindful, you can see many opportunities instead of the frustration.
Yeah, I think they go together, the mindfulness and the patience. And it's really, I mean, we've all been frustrated. We've all got, and you hit that point where it feels like a behavior, you hit that plateau and it just won't improve. You can't figure out, you know, and I had Fung on, Fung, and I had Fung
Mhm.
on a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about errorless training. Well, it started out as errorless learning, and then we decided it should actually be called errorless training. And we were talking about how, we get frustrated with our animals sometimes, and we need to flip that back and say, how are we not communicating what we're looking for? How are we not asking the right thing of our animal, so that it understands? So yeah, I think it's that, put the mindfulness together with the, okay, so I screwed up or I made a mistake and I need to fix it. How do I fix it? Not just, well, it's a waste of time. So that's important. And what about the weather?
Oh man, that that is probably the number one source of most of my frustration, being from up north and really enjoying low humidity and temperate temperatures, especially now in the summer in Central Florida. Oofda, it gets real hot, and that can affect how people are feeling. It can affect how people are performing. I mean, it definitely affects how the birds are feeling and performing. I don't know
Mhm.
how they're feeling, but I do know how they're performing, in terms of what an ideal behavior looks like. So, yeah, so many different antecedents can be a distraction, and the weather is definitely one for us in Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, and I know where you work, you have to go out whether it's raining or whether it's, 100 degrees and you feel like a dish rag and you've got to go anyway. Um,
Hmm.
so I think, it's really, again, take those things into consideration. And yeah, Dan says he loves the thought, take responsibility for your animal's actions since you set the stage for the behavior to occur. It's so true. It's really about, you've got to kind of own it and then work. It's a partnership. So Karen, I knew Karen would comment because she heard the oofta. Karen is from Minnesota. So
Yay.
she said for sure, Ole. Um, so I don't know. I don't speak Minnesotan. Um, but anyway, I think, we do have those days when we just don't feel like doing it and the weather affects us. And, today I call it a grismal day when it's gray and dismal. It's grismal.
Mm.
So, you have to kind of go with it, but you do. So what about other staff? There's a distraction. And I know when people are training at home, it's that the family member that just goes, no, I want to give him treats all the time. He loves me because I
Yeah,
give him treats. Do you guys run into that too?
we do. We for sure do. The behavior that our birds do is pretty complex, but we actually have one of the youngest teams that any I's ever had. So most of the girls on our team, we have one guy, Aaron Rose, and he blends in with us girls very well. But most of the girls, have been with the company less than a year, and it's such a big behavior, and there's so many moving parts. So a lot of times they're working on their skills, which is lovely, and everyone should do that. But then working on their skills, and thinking about the training at the same time, I was in their shoes, and that's kind of difficult, to keep the training mindset going while you're practicing your skills. And all the people on our team are just doing such a great job in a really hard and like not hard environment, but a hard like show environment sometime with all those distractions and all the behaviors, and nothing is black and white, and there's no boxes to check. You just need to keep working at it. So yeah, we run into that too. You can't always pay your favorite bird every time you see them.
No, and I would assume that sometimes guests at the park think it's cool to offer reinforcers, and they don't even know they're offering reinforcers. Does that sometimes get in the way?
Yeah, it definitely can. You always have that guest who runs up and is like, "Well, can I feed it?" And I always say, if you grow up and become a bird trainer, you can for sure feed it. We would love to have you on our team. You can have my job when I retire. So, um, but
That's
yes,
a
it's
good.
it's so interesting.
I
Yeah.
like that answer. That is good. Um, and then, we talked about the checking the boxes, that's hard too. I just got to get this done. I got to go ahead. So how do you avoid that mindset?
That is a really good question too, because especially young learners who are new in the industry, just want to get to the next level and prove to themselves that they've done it. And I think sometimes when you're so new and focused on progressing so fastly, you forget to have fun in the moment, and you forget to enjoy the animals just for who they are and what the job is. And um, yeah, I just think checking the boxes like really it gives you a little bit of tunnel vision when there's just so much to enjoy being a learner. Like just enjoy being at the level you're at with the skills that you have, knowing that you're working towards more, and just pat yourself on the back for that, because you don't need to be in a hurry. Just enjoy the process.
And I think, for people who are training at home, they get super motivated. Okay, I want to train X behavior. I want this to happen. And they get hyper focused on making that behavior happen. And I know I've been guilty of it with a companion parrot being, like, oh, well, I got to get this, I got to go do a training session and then I have to go do something else. And so life with that companion parrot becomes so hyper focused on just training that behavior that you forget to appreciate the relationship. You forget to appreciate all that goes with it. And I think that's something for people to keep in mind. You mentioned enjoying being in the moment and really enjoying the relationship as well as the training experience. And I think that's really, yeah, Debbie says it's important to enjoy the process, not the end goal. Otherwise burnout is real. And it's very true. I mean, Debbie, has companion parrots and does shows as well. So she knows. And it is, it all keeps coming back to mindfulness. It's
I'm
a
telling
lot
you.
to think about. It
Yeah, and
really
I
does,
just you
go
go.
ahead. No, I mean, it's just, we had talked about the list of distractions and we talked about, but it just keeps coming back to that point.
I think so
So,
too. And I think when you think of training as work, it takes all the fun out of it and it labels it as, something that you have to do. And, NEI is
mhm.
all about not using labels, or if you use a label, operationalize it and, say what that label actually looks like. And so training should look like fun, and it should look like positive interactions, and it should look like 2 minutes if you have 2 minutes, or an hour if you have an hour. And building the trust account is the best kind of training anyone can do, putting deposits in, especially with their parrot at home. I don't have any parrots
Mhm.
at home, but 8 hours a day I'm putting deposits in my trust account with all the individuals I work with, human and feathered. And I just think, try not to have yourself pressured that you need all these behaviors trained, and just work on the trust account, see what your bird offers, get out of their way, and, you know, reinforce what you'd like to see again. And even baby steps are huge steps, and just don't discount that.
Yeah, it's very true. Um, all right. So we've talked about, the distractions, and some of them we can control and some of them we can't. So I want to talk about the things we can control. So we're going to do, we got to do a little definition first of all. So the first one we wanted to talk about was antecedent. Um, and an antecedent is what comes before the behavior. Do you have a more formal definition?
No, I think that was simply stated and exactly right. Just like anything that sets the stage is like what we usually say at NEI and in the workshops we do. So that can be anything from how a perch is set up, to checking which way the wind's blowing, to, if you're in your home, like what kind of lighting is happening, or what loud
Mhm.
noises might be occurring, or, is the dog in the other room, or is the dog running around, if you have multiple animals that you care for, and just all those things that come before. We just want it to be set up so the behavior we're looking for is the easiest to do. And there's a lot of ways that we can kind of change the environment to make that possible.
Yeah, I think that that's huge. And we want, you know, I think the key to is to set our animals up for success so that it's not, it shouldn't be a struggle. It shouldn't be, I got to get around it's like, so I can tell you right now, my office, because we moved May 2nd, my office is a disaster. I have to climb over boxes and stuff. Yeah, you can't see it. So Nick is very kindly just got it focused right here. But I'm working on a card table because I couldn't get my desk up the stairs. But I got a new desk, but it's in a box over there. So
Mhm.
all of this is not truly setting me up for success, but I managed to do the behavior by stepping over things and going around things. Would it be much quicker if I had a nice, neat office with my new desk all set up, with my papers all in the right place? Sure, it would. Um, but I think those are the kind of things that we need to remember for our animals. We need to think about, if you hang that toy right in front of the perch that you want him to land on, now he's got to kind of veer around and do the ninja bird thing. Well, that's not necessarily the best way to do it. So,
Exactly.
um,
We have the same kind of thinking in our flights. We have big flights where the birds live, and if we hang toys up all the time, but if you put it right where they're supposed to be sitting, it's harder for them to sit. So it makes that behavior harder to do. And I like how you
mhm,
talked about how the antecedents right now in your home aren't set up exactly how you want them to be, but the behavior still occurred. But the consequence of this will drive your behavior in the future. So antecedents are important, but the consequences of what happens after really are what affect future behavior. So
yeah,
that is another thing to pay attention to.
absolutely. So Meg, I've told these guys this on earlier Fridays. So my office is also, it's an old house, so the floors are not necessarily super flat and straight. I have to put a chalk beside my desk chair so that I don't slide out of the frame. So yeah, I have had to adapt my behavior because of it, but I keep doing it, so it's a good thing. I know it's sad. Um, so the other thing So when you guys decide, when I know I had heard, the stories about when things were getting set up for the show. But so when you have these new birds that came in, do you have a plan for how you're going to work with them?
We do. My supervisor, Caitlin, who was in one of your previous photos that I saw earlier, she is a really great leader and knows a lot about raising the babies and teaching the babies first steps, literally first steps to step up on the hand. And right now we have a group of about 15, and they get trained initially at the ranch, and it's literally baby steps at first, teaching them how to take food, how to step up, how to weigh on a scale. And then it goes into the flighted part of it, where it's little baby steps that just keep moving forward. And, when an animal does something without hesitation, that's a good sign of confidence. And that's when you can change the antecedents a little bit to try something a little bit farther or a little bit different. And then back that up with a solid reinforcer, which is the consequence, as they learn those baby steps that eventually grow into bigger steps.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things we need to be aware of too is that even though you have that plan, you've still got to use those skills that we talked about before, your observation skills, because sometimes the best plans do go astray.
Absolutely. And
And
we just, like I said earlier, like let the bird be your guide, like get out of the bird's way is something we also practice. So with those 15 individuals, we may have started on the same page with them, but after the very first session, you can see where that bird is, and some are way ready to move forward. Some are still stuck in kindergarten, no problem for any of that. And it's the study of one. So you train each bird as an individual where it's at. And then eventually, they'll all be landing at show and flying home, and we're going to be so proud. So I'll have to keep you posted on their progress.
yes, absolutely. And, one of the things I think, people need to hear this is that, so are they all the same species, the 15 that you have?
They are not. We have a mix of green-winged macaws, military macaws, and blue-throated macaws.
Okay. But so the point I was going to make is that all the blue-throated macaws don't learn at the same speed or the same level, and all the green wings don't learn at the same level. And I know I've had people say, well, I've got this conure, and I saw somebody on TV or on YouTube or online, and their conure was doing this and this, and how come mine is the same age as that one and can't do it? And I think you brought up a really good point, that it is a study of one, they're all individuals, and you need to again let the bird be your guide and go with what you're seeing from that bird. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what makes the job very challenging, is seeing every bird as an individual, because it's over 100 different, essentially like training plans that you have to keep track of in your brain. But repetition builds confidence. That's another thing that Steve says. So repetition with that mindfulness and repetition with building relationships with your coworkers helps keeping track of all that stuff way more doable. So yeah, just let the bird be your guide. It's always a good thing to fall back on.
Terry says Terry is she breeds beautiful conures, and she says, I love training my babies. It's so rewarding watching them progress. And it's true. It's you're reinforcing them with whatever you've determined that high value reinforcer is, but they're reinforcing your behavior when you see that progress. And it's a give and take relationship. So we can also control the prompts that we're giving. So how would you control that situation, Meg?
That's a really good question too. Prompts are a beautiful thing that we use a lot in the beginning steps of training. But Steve always says, it's only a prompt if you fade it. If you don't fade it, then it's become a cue. So combining, the science of behavior and the art of training where you really fine tune your skills as a trainer is knowing when to fade that prompt. So that's another big thing that we try to teach our new learners on the team, when to use prompts, when it's most effective, when it won't matter. If a bird is eating its favorite snack and you're trying to prompt it, waving it to come to you, you're like, what's in it for that bird to leave what it's doing, which it really likes, to come to you? So just like knowing when to offer prompts, and then also knowing when to fade them. But a prompt is a great thing that we all rely on. If we're hanging out and you say, come over here, like, come over here as a prompt for me to know that you want me to go that way, and eventually if you did that 5 days in a row, I might come that way without you having to, give me a physical prompt. And so I think it's another great thing to practice mindfulness when it comes to just our daily life and our daily interactions as social beings, how many prompts we use and how we rely on them, and recognize that that can be really helpful for the animals we work with too.
Yeah, I've told this story before. I was working with Sid Price, and he was actually working with Pied Crow, and he was using a prompt, inadvertently using a prompt, and was unaware. He was cueing a behavior. It was an A to B flight, cueing that behavior, but then he was dropping his hand, and the bird was going to the floor, and he couldn't for the life of him figure out why this behavior that this bird had done, forever, was breaking down. And it was because this prompt had entered the picture and he wasn't aware of it. And through videotaping, he saw that that's what, that was why it was falling apart. So it's again, all comes back to mindfulness. How are you using those prompts, and how effective are they? You've just got to be aware of. And I think too, so our body language is so important. We worry, we read our bird's body language, we should be, when we're working with them, but our body language is just as important. And I think it comes back to that mindfulness thing. I have that
I
like
know, I'm
tattooed on
telling
my arm.
you,
So,
it's my new
um,
favorite thing.
it's true. Okay, so let's talk about behavioral momentum. You want to explain to our listeners what that is?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, how I think of it anyway, I'm sure there's an actual definition for it somewhere. But if you are dealing with, a training situation or an animal and a behavior that you're trying to, really move forward, and you have that frustration and it's not happening, we like to build behavioral momentum by kind of going back to the basics. What does your bird do really well? Or what does your dog do really well? There's no hesitation at all. Maybe get them to do that behavior, or ask them to do that behavior rather, and reinforce it and get a couple of, really nice repetitions in that'll build that confidence that, maybe then you can ask for the harder behavior and see if what you're, it'll just kind of boost the behavior a bit.
Mm-hmm. And I think, from a human psychology standpoint, using behavioral momentum with an animal also keeps us engaged. It's,
Mm-hmm.
when you've got a bird and it's not doing what you're requesting, it for whatever reason, you've got to figure that out. It can be, like, all right, I'm not gonna continue this training session right now. It's just not working. Okay, so maybe that's a good decision. But leaving it on a positive note where you get that good behavior that you're looking for, that particular behavior, you get a good repetition, and then so it boosts us, I think, psychologically as trainers when we see that happen, that okay, I'm not the most horrible trainer on the planet. Again, be nice to yourself. But I think it helps on both sides. And it is I've used it before to get past a situation where it just wasn't working out, and I needed that animal to have some confidence in our relationship and in its ability, in order to move forward. So,
Exactly.
and I think with the babies, I'm sure you you can use that a little bit more, even to get them to kind of build on what they're learning. Um,
For sure. I mean, they have learned so much within the last year. And so you forget that like every individual is never not behaving. Like we're always behaving, even if we're doing nothing. So targeting, stationing, upright, calm behavior, vocalizing, waving, like playing with a toy. Like there's so many things that you can reinforce that animals offer freely that you can put on a cue and have in your back pocket when you need to, or when you'd like to just, bring up the vibe a little bit and set the mood a little bit higher when you do have a few repetitions that didn't go how you wanted them to. Like remember that those little things that they already know, that you can use that for both of your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And Debbie says failure is part of the process, and it's okay as you figure out what the real needs are. And I think that's it goes back to really listening to our animals and being aware of what they're communicating to us in so many different ways. And I think the other thing I wanted to talk about that we have control over is our approach. And it goes back to, you roll out of bed and you're late and there's traffic and it's miserable and you get to work and now it's time to train birds. Okay, that's not really how that works, but it kind of has to.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you suggest, if somebody's having a bad day, but they really feel the need to do that training session with their bird at home, um, suggestions for them, Meg? Do you have any?
Yeah, I think, again, try not to be so hard on yourself, and if you need to take a day off from training your bird, just take a day off. You can give it high value reinforcers just for hanging out with you or just for being there. Not every interaction has to be a training session. Deposits in that trust account, I think, are just as valuable, maybe even more valuable. But then pick a time of day that you know that you're going to be filled with some good energy and that you won't be rushed or that you won't resent, doing. Because if I know busy schedules, we try to cram everything in. But yeah, taking a day off, that is also really valuable. Your bird probably appreciates the day off and you appreciate the day off too. So set yourself up for success also, not just your bird, because if you're set up for success, then they will be more successful too.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. And I think, okay, so we're kind of getting close on time, but there's something I really want to talk about, and it's things we can't control. So other people's actions. Um, e- Even if you're not in a supervisory role, like in a work setting. So you've got your
Mm-hmm.
family and everybody wants to do training and everybody wants to help out. Um, Suggestions for people as far as how to kind of work with other people, not have control over them, but to make it a positive situation for others. What kind of things would you suggest?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Besides the mindfulness that we've been talking about, another thing that I've been really focusing on is setting boundaries. And I think setting boundaries with you and your bird and what interactions that you're comfortable with other people being involved, and just being honest with the people in your life, like what you're comfortable with, or maybe find a way that they can offer reinforcement that doesn't really, go past your comfort zone and I don't know, go into the science behind behavior and the art of training and maybe give them a little, you know, layman tutorial about the ABCs of training and help empower them, but also educate them and let them know why it's important to have a relationship before you just jump in and start messing with someone else's bird.
Oh yeah, and I think I think your description of a layman's version is really important. We need to know, and people need to know that there is science behind all of it. But that arts and science piece, we've been talking about that for years. NEI, IAATE, Dr. Friedman, we've been talking about that for so long. And there's the science, which is it's right there in front of you. You can't refute it. There it is, and it works. But then there's that nuance, that art that happens, and I think you can tell, your third cousin who comes to visit for Thanksgiving the science, but does he really care? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to see the bird do cool things. And so it's like, okay, let's talk about an easy way to understand. And I don't want to say you got to dumb it down for your cousin that comes for Thanksgiving, because that's not a nice approach either. But make it so that they see it in action. And I think that's, for me, that's the easiest way to get people to understand how it works. That it's not just, oh, I'm going to just feed these to him and he's going to do whatever I tell him to do. Yeah, no,
Hmm.
that, no. And I think, young trainers need to kind of think about those things when they're first starting out.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, and education, it's edu- education, not lecturing, I think is important too. I mean, the show that you do is so wonderfully engaging that people are learning and they don't even know about it. And I think part of when a distraction happens with someone who is not directly involved with the training, being kind with that education piece and being engaging is really important. How do you guys keep that engagement happening?
Yeah, I think that's also a really important point. Steve has a quote that he says all the time that I can't remember right now, but it's like, tell me and I might remember, show me, I'll probably forget, but like if you involve me, like that'll change me. And that's not how the quote goes, but that's just how I remember it. So when people are involved and empowered to be involved, that's when something happens, with our emotional and intellectual connection of what we're experiencing, manifests in like great change and great, you know, moving forward, like to make a difference in an animal's life. So yeah, just telling people that they can really make a difference for parrots in the wild is something that we talk about every show, and there's easy ways. Just being here makes a difference, learning makes a difference, checking out, World Parrot Trust website, we always plug that because we work closely with them, and like just recognizing that you can be part of a solution to a problem that a lot of animals face, whether it's parrots or any other animal on this planet. It's nice for people to feel empowered, and definitely we try to involve them as much as we can, because when they see birds like this, they hopefully will start to care about birds like this, is something I usually say often in my spiel.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. So, all right. Any final words of advice for our companion parrot owners out there, Meg, as far as training with distractions? Anything you'd
Yeah,
suggest?
I would just say just do the next right thing and be okay with not knowing what that is right away, and also be okay with taking a break and thinking about it, and just practice that mindfulness as you move forward and have fun while you're doing it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very, very much for joining me. So sometimes there are nights when I go, oh, we have to talk for another half an hour. I don't know if this is going to last that long, but it's like 8:05 already, and it's been wonderful. So, oh wait, so Dan brought Nick. Can you bring up the quote? Dan remembered it. Gets a gold star for
Oh, thank
tonight.
you.
Tell me and I'll forget. Show me I may remember. Involve me and I'll understand. There we go. Thank
Wow.
you, Dan.
Thank you,
Gold star for Dan.
Dan. Yeah,
All right. Um, so Meg, I have a couple of things I need to go over with folks, but thank you very, very much. And I look forward to seeing you at IAATE,
absolutely.
perhaps.
It's
Yeah.
going to be here.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, guys. So just again, reminder: the BOGO is going on through June. Free shipping on orders of $100 or more, and be patient. I promise you, we are getting them all out there. It's just, the elves are. It's it's nice weather, and no, that's not why. So the elves are in a new location. I can come up with a whole bunch, but you guys have just been wonderful, and so we're swamped. And next week's topic is consultation expectations. It's not magic, with Jess Uliano. So Jess does some consulting and I've done some consulting, and we're going to talk about what you can kind of expect. And I want to wish all the dads out there, whether they're dads of feathered kids or dads of puppies or kitty, whatever, or human dads, I want to wish you all a happy Father's Day. And I and for those dads that can't be with us, just want you all to know that we miss you and love you. And so happy Father's Day. And you guys have a wonderful week. And thank you again, Meg. Take care. See you later, guys. Good night.